Being chosen by the divine is rarely the glorious, effortless path the world imagines it to be. In truth, to carry this sacred calling is to walk through a silent, refining fire designed to reshape your very essence. Long before your light is revealed to the world, your spirit is led into deep, secret crucibles where only the strongest souls can endure. If you have spent your life feeling strangely out of place, carrying burdens that felt far too heavy for one person, you are not alone. You may have watched your world collapse, just as you thought you reached stability, leaving you bewildered by the intensity of your journey. Chosen one, understand that these overwhelming seasons were never meant to crush you. They were meticulously designed to prepare you. The universe does not test you to destroy your spirit, but to strip away everything that prevents you from stepping into your highest divine potential. Every silent tear, every unexpected betrayal, and every isolated moment was a necessary step in burning away the illusions of the lower self. What felt like total destruction was actually sacred alignment taking place in the hidden depths of your life. Today, we step into the sacred understanding of the 7 deep spiritual tests that only a chosen soul will ever experience. These are not ordinary life struggles. They are profound benchmarks of spiritual initiation that refine raw pain into unshakable inner authority. Recognizing these tests will give you the clarity, comfort, and peace your spirit has been searching for. As we begin this journey together, take a deep breath and settle quietly into your heart. If you feel guided to walk this road of deeper spiritual awakening alongside us, you are always welcome to join our growing sanctuary here at Wisdom Path. The initial testing ground for any chosen soul rarely begins with public honor or sudden elevation. Instead, it starts with an abrupt and often bewildering removal from the crowd. You may notice a subtle shift occurring over time, where no matter how hard you attempt to fit into familiar social circles, family dynamics, or workplace environments, an invisible hand continuously pushes you into the margins. You begin to feel like an outsider among those you have known for years, experiencing a profound sense of alienation, even while standing in a room full of people. This is not mere bad luck, nor is it a social failure on your part. It is the wilderness test. It is a divine quarantine, orchestrated by higher intelligence to separate you from the collective momentum of a world that is fast asleep. The universe enforces this radical isolation because it understands a truth your human ego often tries to resist. As long as you are immersed in the endless noise, opinions, and spiritual dependencies of the collective, you will continue to seek validation outside of yourself. You will naturally adapt to the lowest common denominator of your environment, adopting the fears, limited beliefs, and toxic patterns of those around you. To break this cycle, the divine must pull you away into a space of complete quiet. In this solitary wilderness, every external distraction is stripped away, leaving you without the comforting noise of social validation, superficial entertainment, or constant human reassurance to numb your inner world. In the depths of this divine quarantine, you are forced to sit face to face with your own unvarnished reality. You are brought directly before your deepest fears, your unhealed childhood wounds, and the quiet, unraveling truth of your spirit. Chosen one, this season feels like cold abandonment only because you have not yet recognized it as an act of absolute protection. It is in this uncomfortable silence that the noise of the ego slowly subsides, allowing you to finally distinguish between the panic of human loneliness and the holy tranquility of being alone with the divine. You begin to realize that the emptiness you felt was never a void to be filled by human presence, but a sacred space reserved exclusively for your spiritual awakening. As you spend time in this incubator of solitude, a subtle transformation begins to take root within your character. You learn to tune your internal ear to the quiet, subtle whisper of your intuition, rather than the loud, chaotic demands of the outside world. You discover how to comfort your own spirit during dark nights, finding an abundance of peace within your own presence that no human relationship ever managed to provide. The need to perform, to please others, or to shapeshift into someone else just to gain temporary acceptance simply evaporates. You begin to draw your power directly from the infinite, timeless source within, realizing that your value was never subject to human approval. Once you master this wilderness, you emerge with an unshakable inner anchor that cannot be uprooted by the opinions of men. A person who has learned to thrive in radical solitude is a dangerous force against spiritual deception, because they can no longer be manipulated by the threat of rejection or isolation. You realize that solitude was never your prison, but the very crucible where your true spiritual authority was forged. And as this self-sufficiency crystallizes deep within your spirit, the testing ground naturally expands, shifting its focus from your internal world into the delicate, complex tapestry of your human relationships. As you step out of the wilderness with a newly refined sense of self, the universe immediately brings this new internal strength into the realm of your closest human connections. This phase is often described as the painful unmasking of proximity, a season where the long-standing bonds you held most dear begin to strain, fracture, or dissolve entirely. You may find yourself facing sudden betrayals from people you trusted with your deepest secrets, cold indifference from family members, or an inexplicable emotional distance opening up between you and your lifelong companions. Relationships that once felt effortless suddenly become heavy, exhausting, and filled with unspoken tension. This heartbreaking fracture occurs because real spiritual evolution produces a drastic, undeniable shift in your energetic frequency. As the light of your true spiritual purpose begins to awaken within you, it operates like a brilliant mirror, unconsciously exposing the unhealed shadows, hidden motives, and dormant insecurities in those around you. People who were comfortable with your old, quiet, or submissive self will naturally resist the emergence of your spiritual authority. They are not necessarily evil people. Rather, your growth threatens the unspoken rules of the dynamic you once shared, forcing them to confront their own lack of transformation in your presence. The suffering endured during this test is deeply profound, as it attacks the universal human desire to be understood and cherished by those we love. You may spend countless sleepless nights trying to explain your heart, attempting to fix misunderstandings, or mourning the sudden coldness of people who once promised to stand by you forever. Chosen one, passing this test requires you to accept a difficult truth. Loving people does not mean allowing them to keep you tethered to a lower state of consciousness. You must relinquish the exhausting urge to defend your integrity or convince people of your purity when they have chosen to misinterpret your growth. Throughout this season of relational dismantling, you are being taught the sacred art of non-resentful detachment. You begin to understand that not every person who enters your life is meant to accompany you to the final destination. Some were simply assigned to specific chapters to help you grow. When a bond breaks, it is rarely a sign of failure, but rather a manifestation of divine mercy. The universe is intentionally closing doors and severing ties that would otherwise drain your spiritual energy and block you from stepping into your true mission. You learn to bless those who walk away, wishing them well on their own journey without allowing their departure to break your heart. When you finally stop clinging to relationships that have served their spiritual purpose, a profound lightness settles over your soul. You recognize that being misunderstood by the world is often the price of being aligned with the divine. You hold no malice toward those who could not meet you at your new frequency, realizing that everyone operates according to their level of spiritual awareness. Yet, as these familiar human anchors drop away and leave you standing fully exposed in your truth, a much more subtle and seductive temptation emerges to test the purity of your devotion. With your old support systems dismantled and your spirit navigating entirely uncharted territory, the universe sets a subtle, critical crossroads directly before your feet. This is the test of absolute spiritual integrity, the precise moment where the shadow realm presents you with an alluring, easy way out of your suffering. after enduring months or years of isolation, financial hardship, or emotional strain, an opportunity will suddenly appear that promises instant relief, elevated status, material wealth, or deep romantic connection. However, this glittering offer will always carry a hidden cost, the silent compromise of your core moral alignment or spiritual truth. The shadow compromise rarely arrives in a terrifying or obvious form. Instead, it disguises itself as a golden door, a long-awaited miracle, or a well-deserved reward for your past struggles. You might be tempted to use your heightened intuition and spiritual insight to manipulate a situation for personal gain, or to take a dishonest shortcut in your career just to secure financial stability. You may be presented with a relationship that offers intense comfort, but requires you to dim your light, compromise your values, or re-enter toxic patterns you were set free from. The trap lies in its subtle plausibility, whispering that the end justifies the means and that you have suffered enough to deserve a break. This crucible is specifically designed to test whether your devotion to divine truth is absolute or merely conditional. The higher realms are observing your heart to see if your spiritual principles are genuine values that you live by, or just empty ideals you talk about when life is easy. Chosen one, it is simple to maintain high morals when you are well-fed, supported, and comfortable. It is an entirely different matter to refuse a toxic compromise when you are exhausted, broke, and standing alone in the dark. The universe is asking a fundamental question: can your spirit be bought when the price of convenience is dangled before you? Passing this test requires a radical level of spiritual discernment that looks past the glittering surface of an opportunity and sees the spiritual debt attached to it. You must come to the deep realization that no worldly position, financial gain, or temporary relief is worth the devaluation of your soul. When you actively choose truth over convenience, even when it means turning down what appears to be your only physical lifeline, you demonstrate to the universe that you possess the rare integrity required to hold genuine spiritual power. You prove that you cannot be bribed by the illusions of the physical realm. By rejecting the shadow compromise, you declare that your loyalty belongs entirely to the divine, regardless of the immediate cost. You step into a level of spiritual authority that cannot be granted by human institutions or bought with money. You show the higher realms that you are a trustworthy steward of divine light, capable of carrying great power without being corrupted by self-interest. But refusing the easy way out and choosing the narrow path often leads you straight into the quietest, most intimidating wilderness of the entire journey. Passing the test of integrity brings a profound sense of clean conscience, yet it frequently ushers in a period of complete, eerie spiritual dryness. In ancient mystical traditions, this phase is known as the dark night of the soul. It is a season where all supernatural signs suddenly vanish, synchronicities grind to a halt. Your intuition seems completely dormant, and your prayers feel as though they are rising into a cold, empty vacuum. The warm, comforting presence of the divine that once guided your steps seems to have vanished without a trace, leaving you in a state of absolute spiritual stillness. During this grueling phase, you are completely stripped of spiritual breadcrumbs and emotional consolations. The universe deliberately withdraws its felt presence, leaving you in what feels like an existential void where no guidance is offered and no answers are given. This silence is bewildering because it usually arrives right after you have made immense sacrifices for your spiritual path. The human ego panics in this quiet space, jumping to the conclusion that it has sinned, made a wrong turn, or been entirely abandoned by heaven. You may feel an overwhelming urge to manufacture your own direction or return to old, lower vibrational habits just to feel something again. However, chosen one, you must understand the divine mechanics behind this absolute quiet. The universe withdraws its felt presence not to abandon you, but to test the true maturity of your faith. It is effortless to walk in trust when your path is illuminated by miracles, clear signs, and and constant emotional warmth. It is entirely different to remain faithful, disciplined, and loving when you are enveloped in total darkness with no guarantee of what lies ahead. The Great Silence is designed to reveal whether your faith was built upon sensory rewards and spiritual emotionalism, or upon an unshakable, foundational knowing of who you are. In this deep stillness, you are being trained to transition from spiritual childhood into spiritual adulthood. You learn to stop relying on constant external validation from the universe and begin walking by pure, unyielding internal conviction. You discover how to maintain your daily spiritual discipline, your kindness toward others, and your moral integrity even when heaven offers no applause or immediate reward. You realize that the divine has not left you at all. Rather, it has stepped back like a loving master, watching to see if you will stand firmly on the ground you have gained. When you endure this silence without bitter complaint, without turning back to worldly illusions, and without losing your capacity to love, something magnificent crystallizes within your spirit. Your faith ceases to be a fragile emotion that fluctuates with your daily circumstances. It transforms into an indestructible, permanent state of being. You become a self-sustaining beacon of light that does not require external fuel to burn brightly, and it is precisely this ironclad, quiet faith, forged in the silent void, that prepares your spirit to face and master the raw, unearned hardships that await you in the physical world. When you emerge from the vast, silent void of the dark night with an unshakable inner faith, your spirit is immediately brought into the arena of practical spiritual alchemy. In this phase, you are handed heavy burdens of suffering that you did not earn or create. Undeserved accusations, sudden betrayals, severe systemic unfairness, or heavy generational trauma that was passed down through your bloodline. The immediate human response to unearned pain is bitterness, resentment, and a desire for retaliation. Most people respond to injustice by projecting their pain outward or adopting a permanent identity of victimhood, allowing their wounds to rot into cynicism. However, a chosen soul is called to a far higher, more demanding spiritual function, the art of holy transmutation. You are intentionally brought into contact with raw human cruelty and unfairness, not because you are being punished, but because your spirit possesses the rare capacity to process toxicity without passing it along to others. You act as a divine capacitor, capable of absorbing the heavy, destructive energies of this world and neutralizing them through the power of your awareness. Where others return hatred for hatred and strike back with equal malice, you are tasked with holding the line, turning the bitter lead of human suffering into the pure gold of spiritual wisdom. This crucible requires immense emotional fortitude, as it forces you to sit with the crushing weight of "why me" during your most vulnerable moments. You may shed countless silent tears in the dark, wondering why you were chosen to carry the heavy debts of family lines or shoulder the consequences of other people's unhealed behavior. Chosen one, understand that absorbing the blow of injustice without becoming toxic yourself is the ultimate mark of spiritual power. Every time you choose not to strike back, every time you refuse to allow someone else's darkness to corrupt your character, you shatter ancient generational curses and dissolve long-standing karmic loops that have bound human souls for centuries. Passing the test of transmutation does not mean allowing yourself to be a doormat or tolerating ongoing abuse in your physical life. On the contrary, it requires you to establish firm, holy boundaries backed by an unyielding inner calm. You step away from toxic situations not out of petty anger or spite, but out of deep self-respect and reverence for your divine energy. You learn to guard your heart with absolute discipline, refusing to allow bitterness to take root in the sacred soil of your mind. You become a living, breathing filter in a dark world, absorbing the harsh energies surrounding you and releasing only peace, clarity, and higher understanding back into the atmosphere. When you master the ability to transform raw pain into divine authority, you realize that your deepest wounds were actually your greatest spiritual gifts in disguise. The very experiences that attempted to break your spirit served only to expand your capacity for deep empathy and spiritual strength. You no longer fear suffering because you know you possess the internal fire required to burn through any darkness. Yet, once you have learned to transmute external pain into power, you reach a threshold where the ultimate sacrifice is demanded, the complete surrender and dismantling of the personal ego you built to survive in this world. Having mastered the transmutation of external suffering, your spirit undergoes its most radical and terrifying internal transformation, the total death and dismantling of the egoic identity. Up until this point in your journey, you may have held on to personal ambitions, social labels, specific life plans, or a carefully crafted image of who you thought you were supposed to become. The universe will systematically dismantle these human constructs, allowing your old goals to crumble, your public reputation to be stripped away, and your long-term plans to fail until nothing remains of the identity you constructed for comfort and survival. This ego death feels like a literal dying process because, in many ways, it is the death of the lower self. The old personality, constructed from early childhood conditioning, defense mechanisms, and the subtle desire for societal approval, must be completely burned away so that your higher spiritual self can take full residence in your physical body. It requires you to mourn the life you thought you wanted, letting go of the timelines, expectations, and personal control you clung to for security. Watching your former identity collapse while standing in the wreckage of your old life is an agonizing experience that forces you to question everything you once believed about yourself. Chosen one, this systematic destruction occurs because the universe cannot pour divine authority into a vessel that is still full of human pride and self-centered ambition. As long as you are operating from the ego, your spiritual gifts will be filtered through the lens of personal gain, fear, or the desire to prove your worth to others. The divine must hollow you out entirely, stripping away every false mask, every defense mechanism, and every hidden motive until you are completely empty. It is in this state of absolute vulnerability that you stop fighting the flow of your life and learn the holy art of unconditional surrender. In the quiet emptiness following ego death, a profound stillness settles deep within your soul. You begin to realize that you are not your job title, your social standing, your bank account, or even the tragic story of your past struggles. You are the timeless divine awareness observing it all. The desperate need to control outcomes, to plan every detail of your future, or to prove your greatness to a world that never understood you simply dissolves. You stop trying to force open doors that were meant to remain closed, allowing yourself to be moved entirely by divine orchestration rather than human anxiety. When the ego has surrendered its throne, you become a pure, clear channel through which higher consciousness can operate without resistance. You no longer carry the heavy armor of self-defense because there is no fragile ego left inside you to protect or offend. You step into an unshakable state of peace that is completely immune to the praise or criticism of the physical world. You are finally ready to be used as a true instrument of divine purpose, standing clean, empty, and refined. And it is from this place of absolute surrender that your spirit is brought before the final, supreme benchmark of spiritual mastery, the test of radical mercy. When all former identities have been laid to rest and your soul stands completely empty and refined, the final and most magnificent test reveals itself in the deepest chambers of your heart. This is the master benchmark of radical mercy. You will inevitably be brought face to face, whether in the physical world or through the deep corridors of your memory, with the very individuals, systems, or circumstances that inflicted your deepest wounds throughout your journey. You are presented with the opportunity to look directly at those who betrayed, slander, or attempted to destroy you while holding absolute power over your own emotional landscape. This final benchmark does not ask you to condone their actions, minimize the harm they caused, or invite toxic people back into your personal life. Radical mercy is not about weak compromise or lack of boundaries. Rather, it demands the complete, permanent eradication of internal resentment from your soul. It asks you to look past the surface of those who hurt you and see them through the eyes of higher truth, recognizing that they were not all powerful monsters, but deeply wounded, spiritually blind souls acting out of their own unhealed darkness and fear. You realize that their attack on your light was merely a reflection of the internal war raging within themselves. Passing this test requires you to drop the heavy weight of vengeance once and for all, releasing any desire to see your former oppressors punished, humbled, or brought to justice by your hand. You come to understand that holding on to anger, even justified anger, keeps your spiritual frequency tethered to the very people who hurt you. Chosen one, true liberation occurs when you can look at the architects of your greatest heartbreaks and genuinely wish for their spiritual awakening, healing, and elevation without requiring an apology, a confession, or any form of closure from them. When you offer this radical mercy from a place of unshakable inner peace, you break the final spiritual chains binding you to the physical matrix of suffering. You demonstrate to the higher realms that your heart has become an unpolluted conduit for divine grace. You are no longer reflecting the hostility, pettiness, and reactivity of this world. Instead, you illuminate it with unconditional love and holy composure. You prove that your light was never dependent on how the world treated you, but on the infinite source residing within your spirit. Having completed these 7 crucibles, you stand no longer as a victim of your life story, but as a fully initiated, victorious master of your spiritual path. The fire has done its work. The raw carbon of your earthly struggles has been compressed into an indestructible diamond capable of reflecting pure light into the darkest corners of existence. You have passed the tests, survived the wilderness, and claimed your true spiritual authority. You are now ready to walk out into the world, not to seek validation, but to heal, guide, and illuminate the path for all who are ready to follow. Chosen one, if you recognize your own life path reflected within these 7 sacred crucibles, hold your head high and breathe deeply into this present moment. The heavy weight you have carried was never meant to crush your spirit. It was the deliberate, loving pressure required to refine your soul into a diamond of divine light. Every silent tear you have shed in the dark, every bitter betrayal you endured in patient silence, and every single time you chose love over vengeance was seen, monitored, and recorded by the higher realms. You are now stepping out of the furnace of preparation and into the full magnificent authority of your true spiritual assignment. Here at Wisdom Path, it is our highest intention to walk alongside you on this sacred journey, offering a steady, comforting light whenever the road ahead feels uncertain or lonely. You are never as alone as you feel, and your journey has never been in vain. If these words have brought clarity to your spirit, settled the lingering questions in your heart, and reminded you of who you truly are, anchor this high frequency into your physical reality today. Leave the words, "I accept my sacred path," in the comments below, allowing your divine intention to resonate loudly through both the physical and spiritual realms. Thank you for your unwavering light, your courage, and your presence in this world. Walk in deep peace, and may your journey be abundantly blessed.